Welcome back to another sports podcast, everybody. Exactly what the world needs is another sports podcast with a sweaty trio. We're glad to be back in the locker room. Joining us today is a guy who's been around the sports world for years, breaking stories, chasing scoops, and somehow knowing what's happening before half the league does. You've seen him covering the NHL, heard him on Rink-Wide Vancouver and Down to Earth, and if you're a Canucks fan, you probably refresh your feed waiting for his updates. Give it up for the man, Irf Gaffar.
What's going on? How we doing, fellas?
No,
Good,
no,
good, good.
you are like awesome in terms of like reporting and how you're able to develop these relationships and break news. Taylor, just take it away with your first question.
Yeah, so we've had a few guys from the Nation Network on. A few weeks ago we did Alberga and Rosehill, Cabbie and Dan Riccio. So we're kind of knocking them down as we go along. But every time we've talked to them, we've kind of asked them their experience working for the Nation Network in what seems to be the powerhouse media group of Canada in the sports media world right now. So just, walk us through your experience, what that's been like.
Well, first of all, considering I'm fifth on your list of guys from the Nation Network to get to, I don't know. I don't know. No, I'm totally joking. Look, I enjoy it, man. It's fun. It is different. A lot of free reign to kind of do your own thing. Obviously, with Leafs Morning Take, Alberga and Rosehill show, they have their very own unique style, the way they do things, and they do it well. And then you look at, the show with Riccio, Cabbie, and Lindsay, obviously, off the roster. I think that show, is kind of taken off a little bit, and, they get great guests, a lot of good content coming from there. Lindsay does a great job at the reporting aspect of it out in the field and things like that. And obviously, we're all probably around the similar ages where we just know Cabbie from being the cool guy, Cabbie, right?
Yeah.
And then Riccio, obviously, I know from the time that he spent in Vancouver, and then obviously had the opportunity to move back to Toronto, but it's fun. I mean, it's different. I was someone that worked at a network for Sportsnet for a long time in my career. That's kind of how I started out here in Vancouver. So it is a little bit different. I think I'm not that old, but I still consider myself a little bit more of the old school guy in the sense of reporting and things like that. But it's been a nice change. It's a breath of fresh air. And then what they're doing is great. So sky's the limit for them there, and we'll hope to continue to see them grow.
You mentioned that it's different working with the Nation Network versus working with the traditional media agency. Over your time in sports media, how have you seen the landscape change? Like we're seeing so much more short digital content. Just talk about your experience, how media's changed.
I mean, 5, 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't be doing a show like this, right? I think that, it's funny you said it's another sports podcast because that's just what we need. But look, I mean, if the opportunity's there and you're good, go ahead and do it. I think that opinions are great to have. Fans have now kind of taken ownership of doing things a little bit differently and in their own way. I think Rinkwide is a big example of that. Jeff Patterson's been in the media forever. On the radio side, I obviously have background in both television and radio, and that show is basically by the people for the people, right? I mean, we take questions from listeners. It's a fully interactive post-game show from the for the fans in Vancouver, and I think that's why that show has been pretty successful here. You look at other stuff and then what other people have done, and I think the way the landscape has changed is that you're getting more from people who want to talk about their team but don't have an outlet, and now they do. Whether it's covering the Toronto Maple Leafs, whether it's covering the Montreal Canadiens, whether it's the Calgary Flames, anyone across the board, a Utah Mammoth, people over there have a podcast and things like that. I think that that's also a good thing. Like too much content isn't too much content if it's
Yeah.
good, right? And I think that there are things out there that, takes that you get or listen to from maybe someone who's a fan, their opinion. Maybe I can sit here and watch it and be like, hey, I didn't think of it that way. So I think that there is a little bit of that out there as well. But having said that, there are a lot of podcasts out there. There are a lot of things going on in the sports media world. And the landscape there's a seismic shift in it, right? You
Yeah.
see what's going on with Amazon. You see the rumors of Crave coming into the picture. Who knows what's going to happen with Apple TV down the road? There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to have to sit here and wait and see. But a lot more streaming, a lot more like you mentioned, quick content types of things where it's not like You don't have to wait until Sportsnet Central or Sports Center late at night to get your sports fix. You're literally getting it off X, or you're getting it off Instagram, or you're getting it off TikTok. Wherever it is, you're getting it right away. And I think the things that make the people the most successful are the ones that are able to do all that, whether it's report, write, analyze, and also be able to talk about things in real time. So it's different for a lot of people. I think that there's people that are a lot older in the industry that, no, I don't want to say struggle, but that are now kind of getting used to it a little bit. And then I think for younger guys where it's like maybe me a little bit, or even guys like yourselves that are younger, you kind of know what nails to hit on the head to kind of get that content and grow it. So it's an interesting time to be in sports media, especially in Canada. Before, I would say that there's 2 networks, there's 7 Canadian teams, there's 14 jobs. Now it is wide open, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the landscape of Amazon and Crave and all that happening, with the news that happened last week with Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada not
Yeah.
renewing partnerships, where do you think that's going to go? What's that Ron McLean panel going to look like? What's Saturday night going to look like? Is that still going to be sort of a staple in everyone's calendar during the hockey season?
I think it will. Obviously, it won't be on the CBC anymore. I think what Sportsnet's going to do is basically kind of do what they did at the Olympics, and they saw the growth of that from just having games on Sportsnet during the Olympics. Obviously, they were on CBC as well, but Sportsnet took a run of those, and there was a lot of popularity in it. And I think with anything, there's going to be change. I think you're going to see change there. I think you're going to see some change at TSN. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be different coming into next season and beyond. And I think that with the NHL, and if you're Gary Bettman, the more eyeballs you can get on games, the better it is. So if I'm him and I look at my Canadian national days, I want at least 2 or 3. Now, whether it's on Hockey Night in Canada or Sportsnet is completely different, but I want at least, maybe it's not 2 or 3, sorry, 3 or 4 days. Like you look at the NFL, for example, right? They've got Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. They've got every day now. They own every day that they try and do. So if you're the NHL during the regular season, you have 82 games. Hockey has never been stronger in some of the markets, especially with the growth from what's happened from the Olympics. I think the more eyeballs, way better. But as far as your question goes with what we're going to see, I think you'll see some change for sure. Not entirely sure what happens. I mean, look, we all sit here, we're all probably around the same age and say, yeah, we grew up watching Ron McLean because we did. Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday night without Ron McLean was very different. And I was at Sportsnet that first year when George was there and Ron was doing hometown hockey, and things were obviously different. And then it just didn't work out, and that happens. You have to try things in order to experiment to see if it works or it doesn't. Sometimes you can't just stick with what's old because it's not working anymore. So we'll see what happens. I anticipate Ron being back in some capacity for sure. I mean, it's Ron McLean. That guy's walking off on his own, right? No one's telling him that it's his time to go. When Ron McLean decides that it's over, it's up to Ron McLean. Just like it was for Scott Oak, just like it was for some other people. I think that Ron's going to definitely have his say in kind of where he wants to see his career go.
My next question is twofold. So we had a hell of a cup final, great series between
Yeah.
Carolina and Vegas. What was your experience like being there? And follow-up question with the Marner Saga, with all the comments he's been making about the dark time, because we're Leaf fans, so we have to ask these questions.
I'm surprised you didn't call him player 93 or player 16 this time.
Yeah. Employee number 93, right?
Yeah.
I think when you look at it, I'll answer your first question. I thought it was one of the best cup finals in recent history.
For sure.
The hockey was unbelievable. I was saying to my girlfriend, I was like, I like hockey, but I go in and I watch the games. I don't really know what to expect. This one is like must-see TV.
Yeah.
Like you had to go in there and you had to be ready for these games because you never knew what happened. That game where it was game 3 of Mitch Marner, whatever game it was, I can't remember that. Mitch Marner got the hat trick, and then Carolina came back in that third period. In no way I was sitting there saying that Vegas was going to lose this game. Even though they blew the lead, like you just knew they were going to find a way. Obviously, in the end, there wasn't enough gas left in the tank. The injuries obviously hurt them a little bit, but I thought that it was a fantastic series. And for everyone that said that this was going to be a really crappy series and 2 markets that nobody cares about, the US TV numbers were astronomical.
Yeah.
People that watched the Cup final were absolutely thrilled by the way that it went. Gary Bettman was happy about it, obviously, because you had a market in Carolina winning their Stanley Cup for the first time in 20 years. right? And you had Rod Brendamore, who hoisted as a player, now gets hoisted as a coach. There's so many storylines that went into it, and obviously, transitioning into the Marner stuff. Look, I was there on media day, and he answered questions, and it was a lot of media, whether they were Toronto, Vancouver, wherever they were from, national media, they were there. I think that he did a good job of kind of relaying the message of how he felt, and then obviously, he was asked after the series was over to elaborate on the dark days comment, and he did so. And I think that not just Mitch Marner, I think that there's a lot of players and a lot of people in different organizations that would probably feel the same way, but wouldn't say it. And I think that for Mitch, there was a lot that went on behind the scenes that caused him to feel the way that he did. Now for fans, that's like you guys are sitting there of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that you have every right to feel like you got slapped in the face by Mitch Marner. I definitely do. But that's the thing with sports now. You look at the Ottawa Senators fans. Well, how do they feel about Brady Tkachuk? He still has 2 years left on his deal, right? The same can be said about a guy like John Tavares. When he left Long Island, he was a free agent. So it wasn't even a slap in the face. He was just like, I'm out, after saying like, I'm committed, this, that, and the other. But I think with the Mitch thing, I think why people are so upset is because, you feel like he left and just that was it. And that you knew he wasn't coming back, and that was just going to be the end of it. And, Mitch took his lumps in Toronto. Absolutely. Right on the chin, and rightfully so. You make the playoffs, you don't contribute, you deserve criticism. Go to Vegas, you make the playoffs, you don't perform. Not really that many people to, give you that criticism. So after the game where he had the hat trick, Mitch was quiet. There wasn't really much going on for Mitch in the final couple games of that Cup final. So the criticisms were loud for a short period of time. It's not like we're still sitting here talking about what Mitch didn't do because he plays in Toronto. Like in Vegas, that story's done, right? The story's over. They've lost the Stanley Cup. It's over. Their owner wants to buy an NBA team. Like that is it. It's done. And I think in Toronto, this would have continued. The headlines would have been
for the summer.
How did Mitch not perform in the final 2 games of the Cup final? How is that going to affect next season? Things like that, right? So 2 different markets, Canada and USA, and obviously Vegas being a smaller one. But I thought that Mitch played well when he had to be. I thought when he was in front of the camera, he said all the right things and did all the right things. And I know no matter what I say, Leafs fans are still going to be like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. So
I think I'm the one Leafs fan in all of the GTA that doesn't hate Mitch Marner's guts. I understand it's just a business at the end of the day, but hey, that's the way it goes.
There ain't no loyalty. I'll tell you right now, there ain't no loyalty anymore.
No,
not at all.
And we're going to get into it. We have questions about loyalty with
Perfect.
Tkachuk and everything, but I do want to just touch base a little bit about this Carolina team. I was also a huge critic of this team, saying that they played slow. You're not going to win a Stanley Cup with 2 or 3 goals a game. You need to outscore your opponent. You need to take ice away. They've clearly illustrated that they can do that they can play with the best, that they can put pedal to the fucking metal when they need to. Are we looking down the barrel of a Carolina dynasty?
I think it's interesting. That's the question there is interesting, because if Vegas would have won the Stanley Cup, we would have said dynasty.
Yeah.
I think you have to be in at least 3 or 4 and win 2 or 3 in order to be called a dynasty. That Chicago Blackhawks team, 3 in 5 years, dynasty. That LA Kings, 2 cups in 4 years, dynasty. Like they were pretty good, and they were competitive each of those years where they won the Stanley Cup. The thing about the Carolina Hurricanes is they're going to have to get better. The Florida Panthers just got better. Like they are going to have to get better. The Montreal Canadiens are going to do something this summer to get better. So if you can adapt and you can keep up and you can, keep growing and keep continuing to get better and stay kind of the same as all your counterparts, you put yourself in a good position. That team is so well coached. Rod Brendamore is an absolute G. He really is. Like
he really is.
He really is. Like he is everything and more for a head coach. You can see why guys. Maybe Carolina's not the market that a lot of players would look at and say, okay, we want to go there. But for Rod Brendamore, absolutely. The way that he treats his players, the way that the organization treats their players, I think it's huge. No one remembers Mikko Rantanen as a member of the Carolina Hurricanes anymore. You look at Logan Stankoven, undersized center that completely changed the trajectory of that series with his goal in Game 2. He doesn't score there. They're down 2-0. See you later.
Yep.
Right? It's curtains for the Carolina Hurricanes at that point. And then you look at the contributions they got from guys like, Jason Blake, He's a guy that is going to be a star in this league, if not already. His ascension is very high. The defensive game from a guy like Jalen Chatfield, he had a rough couple games, but in that final game, he was pretty good. Keandre Miller, people wrote him off in New York.
God, he's a stud.
Like, it was just a bunch of guys that really nobody wanted. Carolina took a chance on. They came together as a team with the perfect coaching staff, the perfect general manager involved, and ended up working it and figuring out their way. And like you said off the top, the Carolina Hurricanes, you couldn't win with the way they played. You couldn't win with the goaltending they had. You couldn't win with the system and structure they had. They didn't. And then as soon as they got over that hump in the Eastern Conference Final, this team was legit. Brandon Bussi came in, absolutely changed that series. It was a wall for them between the pipes. So they got a lot of things going for them that are good, right? Freddie Anderson probably gone. They've got Bussi now. Like, he's probably Freddie Anderson. That's probably it for him in Carolina, but you get your ring, so it's all good. There's definitely going to be some changes somewhere. I can't see Jesperi Kotkaniemi coming back. Guy couldn't play in the Cup final. He's probably going to want to go somewhere, but with that cap hit and that contract, it's going to be difficult to move. And then everything else, I mean, they've got one of, if not the smartest general manager in the National Hockey League
100%.
running that team, and the people that he has around him might be smarter.
I mean, getting right into the NHL offseason, mega bomb dropped yesterday with Brady Tkachuk. Just overall, what are your thoughts on the fucking the dumb American brothers back together in Florida?
We only see trades like this in the NBA. Like, this is so absurd to see in the NHL. But sorry, take it away.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's absurd. If you think it's absurd, get used to it, because we're going to see more of it. Dylan Larkin's going to get traded. Right now, whether it's come out that Dallas Stars is his preferred team, we'll see what happens. But I think that that's kind of where he wants to go. And there were a couple other teams on his list as well. But the Brady thing for me wasn't surprising at all that it happened. It was surprising to me when it happened. I thought we were going to get closer to maybe the summer or maybe early training camp-ish, where he was like, all right, get me out of here. To hear that it came out right after they lost in the playoffs doesn't surprise me. And it's something that has been known and talked about in hockey circles since the All-Star game in Toronto. I think that there was a point there where Brady may have mentioned it to people and said that I will not resign in Toronto. Or sorry, in Ottawa. And I think that some people kind of took that with a grain of salt and said, yeah, okay, if they offer you this much money, you're going to stay. At the end of the day, you're going to get your money if you're Brady Tkachuk one way or the other, but your happiness as a human being trumps all of that. So he was happy to go, wanted to go play with his brother. Now there was the report out there that there was 4 teams. There was one. There was one.
It was
Florida. And that was the team.
Yeah.
And that's the only place he was going to. I think Keith and his mom, they just built a house there in Florida. So the whole family's going to be living together. In that area. And look, I think the Florida Panthers, I mean, you look, Tkachuk is a monster line.
Oh yeah.
Like they got better. And you got to remember the other thing about the Florida Panthers. Everyone looks at it and be like, oh yeah, Brady Tkachuk, he's going to come here and make us so much better. Sasha Barkov didn't play last season. Sasha Barkov is coming back after just winning a world championship and be like, oh yeah, we just got Brady Tkachuk too. Like they're about to go beast mode.
No big deal.
That Florida Panthers team. Sometimes not making the Stanley Cup works in your favor. I also think living in Florida works in your favor too. But like I said, it was a bomb that dropped. I wasn't shocked at all by it. Same thing with Quinn Hughes. When Quinn Hughes was traded, I think that there was a point in that season where he went to management, or at least the coaching staff, and was like, why haven't I been moved yet? Like, why hasn't this trade happened yet? And then it finally got the ball rolling a little bit more. Obviously, Minnesota was the team that he ends up going to. And the rest is history there. So with Dylan Larkin, you're going to see it. I wonder what the future is with Austin Matthews. I know you guys are Leaf guys, but I wonder what that's going to look like here in the next foreseeable future. I wonder what the future is for Connor McDavid in Edmonton. I really do. And then beyond that, Connor Hellebuck, I think where there's some smoke there's real fire. Now, whether he asked for a trade and the Jets are trying to convince him to stay is kind of the question mark right now. But Kevin Cheveldayoff's listening. And I think you have to. And then what happens when Connor Hellebuck leaves? What does Mark
Yeah.
Scheifele do? What does Kyle Connor do? Like, what does Josh Morrissey do? Like, what happens down the line for all of these players on all of these teams that are just like, screw it, I'm done playing in Canada. I want to go down south and I want to go to a market that isn't, as crazy, that isn't as hostile at times. Maybe just go put on the skates and be able to live a great life.
No, that like it leads right perfectly into my next question. Are we seeing an era now where NHL players would rather quote unquote cup chase to go to a team where you have like a better chance of winning, or are we just reading into it? Because it seems like now with Larkin, Tkachuk, and maybe we can group Quinn Hughes into this, but through this Olympic break, it seems like everyone wants to go to Vegas, Florida, Minnesota. Those are the three teams. And Larkin listed those as his options. Tkachuk, air quotes, listed them as his options. And so are we seeing a world where NHLers are going to start prioritizing a place where they could, one, get a cup done easy, and two, no income tax? And like you said, it's Florida, it's warm. You get to go to the stadium in slippers instead of sneakers and boots.
Yeah, and in Vegas, you're treated like royalty. Like
Absolutely.
those guys eat for
Yep.
free everywhere. Like it's crazy. Like they're treated like royalty there. So, uh, I I'm all about the super team. You want to do it, do it. And if you have the general manager and you have the capability to go and make that happen, and you're smart enough with your cap and the way things and you maneuver, if you're able to create it, go ahead and do it. Because that means that you're doing something better than someone else. And it just so happens, the unfortunate part for everyone else in the league is that people want to go to Florida. People want to go to Vegas. Minnesota's interesting to me because the Minnesota Wild, it's great. There's a lot of great players on that hockey team. But what have they done in the playoffs in recent history?
Nothing.
Not
That's what I
much.
mean. Like, so do we want to build a super team and then go, or do you want to have an established core of guys who have been there, done that, and you can be the piece? Brady Tkachuk knows he can be the X factor there. He may not be a game changer. He may be a game breaker and a guy that in game three of a cup final goes nuclear and they win the series because of his performance in game three. But I don't think he's a guy that's going to get you 100 points next season. I just don't think that. And for him, he's not going to be dependent on every single night.
Yep.
So I think when you look at it from that perspective, for a guy that had all the pressure in the world on his shoulders, now he's going to a team where they've already won the Stanley Cup, already won two. You're not the guy on that team. You're maybe third or fourth in line in all reality.
Yeah.
It's a good life to live, man. And I think you're going to see more and more players use their no trade clauses as a flex. They're going to use it and say, you gave me this. I negotiated this in my deal and you gave it to me. Now I am going to use it. The thing where it's going to start to get tricky is if guys have 5 years left on their deal or like 6 years left on their deal. They
Kind of like Larkin.
Kind of like Larkin.
Yeah.
Larkin's got what, 4?
5, I think.
Larkin's got 5 years left on his
2031,
deal.
yeah.
Yeah, so he's got 5 years left on his deal. That to me is where it's going to get tricky. Is if you start to see that. Like if Connor McDavid ever leaves Edmonton, what does Leon Draisaitl do?
Bye.
Right? Like
See ya.
is that something that we're going to end up seeing? So that's where to me it gets tricky. Is once these guys with a lot of term left on their contracts ask for a trade, that to me is where, the NHL and the PA might look at it and be like, man, there might have to be something that changes here. The owners' meetings are this week, happening in New York, and I wonder if that's going to be a topic of conversation of these no trade clauses and things like that.
What are your thoughts on the Darren Radish deal? A 30-year-old defenseman coming off a career year where he's basically running the best power play in the league. No Hedman, Kucherov fitting into the puck, and then he gets an 8-year deal worth $8.5 million, of course, from the Toronto Maple Leafs. In say the first 2 years, probably a good deal, but do you think it's going to age horribly like every other contract the Leafs hand out?
Yeah, elite shot, right? Isn't that what
Yep.
John Chaika said? He's got an elite
yeah.
shot. Yeah,
A
I mean, he
cannon.
does. I think he does. He was going to get paid one way or the other. I really do believe that. I think that no matter what, he was going to get paid. Unfortunately for you three, it was the Toronto Maple Leafs that gave him that deal. But look, I think that big money is going to be spent this offseason. The free agent market isn't as big as it used to be, or isn't as big as the years past. I think that you're going to look at some of these contracts handed out to some of these players and be like, he got what? I bet you there are players right now. I had a player plays on the Toronto Maple Leafs text me last year or the year before during free agency, be like, man, I wish I was a free agent this year.
Yeah.
just to see what was going on and what was given out to certain players, right? Because these guys all know their worth. They're older. Some of the older guys are like, man, what are these young guys getting? Guy like Owen Power, right? Got a monster
Yep.
contract. Has he lived up to the hype of a number one overall draft pick? I'm not entirely sure. We can all sit here and say, yeah, but I think that Darren Radish, I think that deal will be okay because I think in the first 3 or 4 years of that deal, you look at it and say, okay, he's going to run a power play. He's going to be a guy that's dependent on every night. You hope that this Leafs window is going to be open. You hope that Chaika can make some more moves to,
Hmm.
first of all, keep Austin Matthews happy. Second, keep William Nylander happy. And third, fill out the rest of that roster to actually go and compete for a Stanley Cup. And I think that Darren Radish, does bring that experience. He definitely is a guy that's tough to play against. Guys don't like playing against that guy, and he was something that was needed on that blue line. I think that at 30, he's still a younger Morgan Riley. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a guy
Yeah.
that, has that pedigree. He's a guy that was dependent on night in and night out. And I don't mind the move. And with the cap going crazy, that $8.5 million, when we're going to sit down and look at some of these contracts that are going to be handed out, we're going to be like, man, he might be underpaid.
I think I saw someone created a graph. God knows what their metric was to calculate this, but they said adjusted for inflation, it'll be worth an equivalent to 6 million today.
Well, but that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation is going to
That's
be
fair.
that's the new saying then cap going up. Adjusted for inflation. That's the new cap going up statement, right? So it's a very interesting time to be around the National Hockey League right now because of all the revenue that the NHL, is making and the way that the television contracts are going and the way that the TV numbers are going. Players are going to get paid and players know that they're going to get paid.
Yeah, for sure. Being on the West Coast, you've seen a lot of LA Kings, I'm sure. Jim Hiller was just hired, a week ago, a few days ago
Mm-hmm.
here in Toronto to be the bench boss. He worked under Babs for 4 years, worked in LA for three. What are your thoughts on that? Is he the right hire? Is he the wrong hire? Is it a patch job? What do you think?
I don't think you can ever say it's a wrong hire if before the guys coached a game. I don't. I think that's fair to. I think it's unfair to write someone off before they've even done anything. So you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, it didn't work out in LA. You mentioned he was under Babs for 4 years and might have learned something or might have learned a few things under that guy. But I think when you look at it from the Toronto Maple Leafs perspective, they're getting a guy who's experienced at the NHL level in coaching. I don't think that there was a shot in hell they were getting David Carl. Like that was not happening at all. I don't think it was ever going to be a first-time NHL head coach. I really don't. I think that they wanted a guy with some experience. They wanted a guy that was familiar with the organization, that knew the inner workings of what it took to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, the pressures of that market, the media responsibilities that you're going to have day in and day out. And that was their guy. I mean, what did they conduct 50 interviews or something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That, like, to me, I think people look at it and be like, they talked to 50 guys and this is who they came up with. I think to me, that just screams these guys are doing homework, that they're taking info from every single person that they interview to be like, okay, can we steal some of this? Can we take your idea and write it down and be like, this is something that maybe we could use down the road and give it to our guy? And I think that that's a smart way of going about business. The Vancouver Canucks talked to however many GM candidates, and the guy that they hired already was on payroll in the organization because they wanted to get an idea of what was out there, what people thought of their team, what certain candidates thought that they could do to make their team better. And I think that that's the case that happened with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sticking on the Mike Babcock train, I mean, I'm just baffled at what Edmonton is doing here. It sounds like he's going to be the guy running the show there. It sounds like from everything that I've heard and listened to on radio and podcasts that McDavid and Draisaitl are greenlighting this Babcock hire. I mean, he's a great hockey mind, but he's an asshole. How is that going to work?
Um, Look at John Tortorella. A lot of people would call him an absolute asshole,
Oh
and he's a
yeah.
hell of a hockey coach. He was hired with 8 games left in the regular season, took that team to a Stanley Cup final, right? And I think that a lot of it screams desperation from around a lot of people. Obviously, Mike Babcock comes with baggage. There's a lot of people in and around the National Hockey League that don't like Mike Babcock. Former players, maybe current players, don't like Mike Babcock. There wasn't enough in that investigation because I don't think that there were players that were like wanting to talk about it. I think that if more players were coming forward and saying what they wanted to say and had something to say about Mike Babcock, the investigation might have gone a little bit further, but it didn't. And to me, that says that one, the NHL didn't find anything, and two, this definitely came from the top in Edmonton
Yeah.
for sure. And I strongly believe that Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, who had Mike Babcock in Toronto, and Matthias Ekholm were involved in discussions. Whether that was a Zoom call with Mike Babcock, whether that was an in-person meeting with Connor McDavid, we don't know. We know that they at least talked for sure. And that leadership group was like, yeah, we're down. Like, we think that this guy can help us get to where we need to be. They were a win away from the Stanley Cup final. They didn't get there. And then you bounced in the second round of the NHL playoffs here by the Anaheim Ducks. And you're the Toronto and you're the Edmonton Oilers, and you're sitting here being like, that team just beat us with who we have and what we have on this roster. That team beat us. Like, if you're Connor McDavid, you're like, something's got to give. You're like, I've given it my all. My trophy cabinet is filled with every single trophy, even one the Conn Smythe. Like, he's got everything. He's got everything you could possibly, and an Olympic gold. He doesn't have that either. But he's got everything that you could possibly win except a Stanley Cup. Mike Babcock has that. And, he knows what it takes to win, knows what it takes to go in those high pressure situations. So say what you want. I mean, if these guys say they need a tyrant behind the bench, then so be it. Because that's maybe something that they do need. Maybe Knobloch's message kind of ran a little bit old. They wanted Bruce Cassidy. Vegas wasn't going to allow that to happen. It's unfortunate for Bruce, and it's unfortunate for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think that they feel like what they have with their choice in Mike Babcock is something that can help them get to the promised land.
Do you think the NHL, and maybe some specific teams more in general, are gearing towards a tandem goalie set as opposed to paying a starter big money? I mean, Montreal has Dobish and Fowler in the system. The Leafs, when they won the Atlantic, did it with Stolarz and Woll. Carolina have sort of demonstrated that throughout the year. Do you think that it's kind of gearing towards that where we won't see goalies get 8, 9, $10 million a year anymore?
Yeah, I do. And I also think that with an 84 game schedule, you ain't gonna have a goalie that can play 75 games anymore,
Yeah.
70
Yep.
games anymore.
Just not a
It's
thing.
just not gonna happen. Like, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you're looking at it and being like, okay, we have Demko and Lankinen, and we've got 12 something tied up in goaltending right now. Are we gonna have to get rid of Kevin Lankinen and keep Thatcher Demko and then use Nikita Tolopilo as our backup because we got to recoup assets somewhere? That's just an example of here in Vancouver, but I think you are going to see teams that use both goalies. Colorado Avalanche use both goalies,
Yeah, another one.
right? That's another team that use both goalies a lot. The Minnesota Wild, they have two great
Yep.
goalies. They're a team that's going to have to do that. So I, it's funny because what does starter mean? And are you going to get starter money? Like, Sergei Bobrovsky's probably looking for a deal, probably $6 to $7 million on a 3-year contract. And he can command that because he's like, I just won 2 Stanley Cups. Like, I'm
Yep.
coming with a load of experience. You give me 6, you get a backup goalie, you can pay him 3 or 4. I don't need to play every game, but when it comes to playoff time, I'm going to be your guy, and I know I'm going to be dialed. And I think that that's the most important thing for right now for the National Hockey League for teams is, one, your goaltending consultant, your goaltending coach, or your director of goaltending is a hugely important position for every team right now. And two, it's who are the two horses that you have. One, do they get along? Two, do they have egos? Because if they have egos and one wants to be the guy, it's never going to work.
Oh yeah.
It just won't, unless your backup is so strong and so mentally tough that he's like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna let this guy do his thing. And I think that right now, the way the National Hockey League is going, with the extra 2 games, the way that the season's going, with how tough these games are in the regular season, you need 2 guys.
You mentioned with the Canucks and how they're going to have to start making some moves in net.
Yeah.
What moves do you think you would see the Canucks making this offseason? Is there any possibility that maybe we could see an EP40 Morgan Riley switcheroo? What do you think?
I think as it currently stands, Elias Pettersson is the highest paid player on 25 other teams in the National Hockey League. I don't know if he's the best player on 25 other teams in the National Hockey League. You know what I mean? Like, and I think for teams looking to acquire this player, there's a report out there that the Canucks were going to retain salary. I just don't see the Canucks paying Elias Pettersson retaining salary, like $18 million over the next 6 years. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And then there was something about Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Elias Pettersson. Okay, fair, but Jesperi Kotkaniemi couldn't play in the Cup final for that team.
Yeah.
So if you're trading him to be your number one center in Vancouver, how are you selling that to your fan base? Like it's a very tough situation, and you don't know the future of Filipino in Vancouver. Teddy Bluger is probably going to free agency. So your other centers are Atu Ratu, who's an insanely good faceoff guy, and basically that is pretty much, and Marco Rossi, who isn't proven at the NHL level yet. So you need a guy that has scored 100 points in the National Hockey League. I think that this management group is going to try and work with him. I think that Manny is going to try and work with him as well. And I think that until Elias Pettersson requests a trade, they're going to try and work with him. He hasn't done that. Whether it's he would like a change of scenery, the semantics of it, I don't think that that's the case. I think that he does love living here. I think that, you know, his family, his wife, and they love living in Vancouver. He likes being a Vancouver Canuck. Obviously the contract's pretty damn good, but there's a lot of pressure. It's another Canadian market, and if you don't perform, he was the one that said it. He held himself accountable. He goes, I haven't played up to my contract. And that is totally fair. It's a fair criticism. But for me, like you look at it from the Canucks point of view, and even the Leaf point of view, Elias Pettersson becomes your number 2 center at 11.6 after Austin Matthews. That's a lot of money for that guy.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
hefty.
It's tough, right? And then he's paid more than William Nylander. Like that's a lot of money, or right around the same, I think, as William Nylander. I think their contracts are very similar.
They are.
But
They're very close.
I think that you look at that and you say, okay, well, are we bringing in this guy? And then I just don't think that they're going to retain. I don't think that's going to happen. And then the other thing in all of this, Elias Pettersson's got a full no move. So here's the thing about playing armchair GM. It's great. It's such a fun game to play because we all sit here and we do it all the time. At the end of the day, the player's going to be like, nah, I'm not doing it. I am not doing it. There was a report about Philip Hronik last year or a couple years ago, and his agent had to come out and be like, yeah, he's got a no trade clause for a reason.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. Like, this is what happens. And then you see the other side of it where Dylan Larkin has his, and he's like, trade me. This is only where I'm going. Same with Brady Tkachuk. So it's fun to sit here and do it. I don't think the Canucks are there yet where they're going to go to him and say, you are not part of this. And until they do that, we're going to keep sitting here and playing these games and having conversations about it. And teams are calling. Absolutely. They're probably calling to say, what's this guy about? What's his deal? What are his summers like? What's his workout plan? The Canucks have had no offer. There's been no tangible offer for this player at this point. So with that, teams are doing their due diligence. Teams are calling other teams asking about certain players. Teams are calling players that are currently on their roster being like, hey, you were a teammate of so-and-so. What's this player like? Can we bring him in? Will he be a problem in our locker room? Like, these are the things that are conversations that are happening because it's so early in the summer right now. And I think we hear about it more and more and more because his free agent class isn't very good.
Yep.
It's not what it used to be. There aren't the studs there that every team's going to be like, oh my God, we got to go get him. We got to overpay for him. So I think that's why you're having the trade conversations happen a lot more now, because you get guys that are under control and at a decent cap hit. And Elias Pettersson has scored 100 points in the National Hockey League, right? Unfortunately, as soon as he signed his contract, that completely went away.
Yeah.
And if he can come back to find that, you know, the Canucks have a hell of a hockey player. But I think that this management group, Daniel Henrik-Sedin, Ryan Johnson, you know, Manny Malhotra as a head coach, and whoever he decides to bring as his coaching staff really wants to work with him.
Do you think that the Sedin brothers now being in prominent roles in the front office in Vancouver can work with Pettersson, you know, being the Swedes, being in the limelight in Vancouver for what, 17, 18 years they were there? Do you think that's someone that he can lean on to kind of help guide him through this dark part in his career?
It's an interesting question because I think they've tried in the past. I do. I really do think that they have. And I think that whatever Elias Pettersson decided to do and, you know, how he became a professional and continues to be professional, how he prepares is the way that he's going to do it. And maybe he's not seeking advice from them. Maybe he's getting it from someone else. He obviously, you know, has his own coaches that he works with in the off season to get him ready for the season. You have two hockey Hall of Famers now that are presidents of the hockey team. They are from the same country as you. The resources are there for you to go and get the help that you need, to have the talks that you need at any time. 8 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. Those guys will wake up and answer your phone call. They are that committed to the organization. Daniel Henrik-Sedin, I mean. You have every opportunity, if you're him, to use it. I hope that he does. I do. I think that there are no two smarter people to go and learn from than those two men. I think that having them being presidents of the hockey team is a fantastic choice. And I think that there are a lot of other players on the roster that are going to learn a lot from them, right? And they did it the right way. It's not like the Canucks went out and did what they did with Trevor Linden, where they brought in a guy who had his number in the rafters, beloved in this city, and it just didn't work. Daniel Henrik-Sedin were in player development. They were driving up the road and working with the American League team all the time. They were on the ice with them doing power play drills for the American Hockey League team. They're two hockey Hall of Famers. Like, you don't really see that often. So now for them to be in this position now to try and help this hockey team get to the promised land, a place that they got, but they didn't actually reach the ultimate prize, is something that I think everyone kind of rallies around a little bit. Having said all of that, it's a tough market. Like, if you're not doing well, if this rebuild takes longer than anticipated, if you're in the dumps for the next 6-7 years, you're gonna have to be questioned, whether that's Daniel Henrik-Sedin, whether that's Ryan Johnson, whether that's ownership. There are going to be questions. So they've made all the right moves in the offseason, hiring who they did. Now it's time for those guys to go and do the work.
Speaking of the offseason hires, another two-parter for you. Do you think Malhotra will succeed as the coach of Vancouver? And do you think that maybe that has a little bit of influence on if they draft Caleb or not?
Man, Manny is such a good dude.
Yeah.
He really is. He's awesome. I covered him very early in my career, very late in his career. And he was always a guy that made time for people, always a guy that was very cerebral, always a guy that, knew the game very well. And he went to the jungle. He put in his time.
Oh,
He was an assistant for the Toronto Maple Leafs on the bench.
Yep.
Then he took a demotion to be a head coach in the American Hockey League, took that team to a championship, won the damn thing, and now put in his time and is, going to be the head coach of this hockey team. So I'm a huge Manny fan. I think that he is very deserving of this job. I think this job is tough because I think that the rebuild is going to take a lot longer than people think.
Yeah.
I think that there has to be some runway here for Manny, for Ryan Johnson, for Daniel Henrik-Sedin to go and do their work. I don't think that this is an easy fix at all, but they have the right people involved. I think that player development, I think you look at what he did with the players down there in Abbotsford, was brilliant. And you hope he's going to bring that same work ethic to the Vancouver Canucks organization. Now, whether they draft his kid or not is a wild question. Like, I'm still scratching my head thinking about it. Like, I honestly, right now, I don't know. I don't think it's as a slam dunk as some people do think. I think if the Sharks go rogue, you have to take Stenberg. You have to take best player available.
Yeah.
And I say that about the Sharks too. I really do. I know your need as a defenseman. You just traded for Kesselring. You do need to improve that blue line a lot more. Maybe they do like Chase Reed a lot. Maybe they really do. But I've seen some draft boards where Malhotra's not to like 5. So it's going to be interesting. I think that the Canucks have made the mistake in the past of going by need over player. They took Olli Juolevi and Matthew Tkachuk was the next pick. Now, Matthew Tkachuk, yes, he wanted out of Calgary and yes, found his way to Florida, and who knows what would have happened here in Vancouver. But they have to learn from that mistake. And you have to take best player available. Now, if Caleb is on your board as the best player available at 3, you have to do it. But there's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to, be talked about, right? And I just think that it's easy because it's such a sensitive subject, right? Your dad's the head coach of the national hockey team. They just drafted you 3rd overall. I mean, it doesn't get any more wild than that.
Nepo hire.
Right? But I think Manny said it best. Manny said that I'm a hockey coach and my son is going to, I coach in the National Hockey League, but my son is going to get drafted. So I think that they have the ability to separate the two. Caleb's uncle is Steve Nash. Like, he was born around professional athletes.
Oh, shit.
And been around and involved in his whole life. Like he is a professional already, like clean cut professional. His dad is a professional, his uncle's a professional. Brother Martin Nash played professional soccer as well here in Vancouver, and now coaches, I believe, somewhere in Canada. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, he's been around professionalism his whole life. Steve Nash, obviously two-time NBA MVP. His dad had a very good NHL career, and Caleb knows how to act. He knows how to be professional. So I don't think anything is going to phase either of the two. I just think for us sitting here talking about it, it's going to be a lot, and I wonder if that trickles into the locker room, if that gets to players. Like that's my only worry, because then you get into a locker room where there are egos involved.
Yeah.
Like if Caleb gets drafted by the Vancouver Canucks and Elias Pettersson isn't playing well and Caleb gets more minutes than him, like how does that go over?
No.
Right? Like how is Elias Pettersson talking to his friends about it? I'm just using PD as an example.
Yeah.
How does someone else, talk about that? And that could happen with any team, right? That it's going to happen with. So again, I'm sitting here and I still scratch my head about it, and I to this time right now, we're at whatever time it is on Monday, June 22nd. I have no idea who they're picking at 3. Give me a couple days, maybe send me a text, and by Thursday I might have a better idea. But right now, I have no clue, dude.
I mean, this isn't really a question, but we want to know how you feel about the fact that the Canucks kind of seem to keep getting shafted when it comes to draft lottery. It seems like no matter what they do, they just can't get that one overall pick.
I think it made it worse this year because the Leafs got it.
Yeah,
I think
baby.
I really think
Yeah,
it did. I really think it did.
100%.
I think it made it a lot worse because it was the Leafs that got the pick. But I don't know, man. Like, I just think everyone in Vancouver is like, man, it's the most Canuck thing that could happen. Team has never won the Stanley Cup, been there twice, lost in Game 7, burned down the city. Like, there's a lot of shit that's gone on in this organization that people look at and be like, why us? Why does this have to happen? Why does Thatcher Demko always have to be hurt? Why has Elias Pettersson lost his powers? Like, why is this going that way and everything like that? So I think there's a lot of things that this fan base looks at. Very passionate fan base. Like, I have the backs of the fans because a lot of my friends are season ticket holders, have loved this team their entire life, ask me a lot of questions and things like that. So I understand the voice of the fan base, but I also understand the voice of the ownership group and the general manager and the players of the team and things like that, and the way that they have to go and accomplish these things. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. But yeah, I think the general consensus was like, yeah, obviously this happened. It's the most Canuck thing to happen.
Irf, man, thank you so much for such an awesome interview. Take this opportunity to tell the people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, on X. Find me there, Irf Gaffar. Same on Instagram. Right now, we're just working on stuff leading up to the draft. Dave Pagnoto and I have an insider show dropping on Thursday. I think we're going to record it. There's going to be some news and notes in that. We do that once a week. We will probably do it once a week through the NHL free agency when that window opens. I'm co-hosting a panel with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen for our big trade deadline or our big free agency show. So that should be a lot of fun. And then beyond that, yeah, just kind of see where the summer takes us. I think it's going to be an interesting one. I don't think it's going to be as quiet as people think. I think you're going to see some fireworks, especially this week leading up to the draft. And then beyond that, we'll see what happens. The future of Austin Matthews is always going to be in the back of my mind. I'm sure it is in yours as well. So
Every day.
we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens there.
Irf, at the end of every episode, we do a stay sweaty salute. Can we get a stay sweaty?
Absolutely, boys.
Stay sweaty.